Welcome to Crypto West Coast, where we discuss everything crypto from a Canadian perspective. My name's Damien, and welcome. If you have spent any time in this crypto sphere, I'm sure you've heard your share of naysayers, or it's a bubble sayers, or it'll destroy the environment sayers. These people might even be your close friends and relatives. You might even have these sentiments as you do your own research on this topic. Today, I want to take a closer look at these naysayers and the arguments that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies can destroy the environment. I hope to provide you with some knowledge so that the next time someone might say Bitcoin uses as much energy as 750,000 Visa transactions, you might be able to provide a counter-argument. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win." On April 30th, Bill Maher went on a rant making fun of Bitcoin and all digital assets.
There's also one called Dogecoin that someone started as a joke, but as far as I can tell, it's exactly the same as all the other cryptocurrencies because the whole thing is a joke.
He rallied up the audience by calling cryptocurrency Easter Bunny cartoon money, and Satoshi Nakamoto is Japanese for monopoly money. He then goes into how much energy cryptocurrency computers use and how all this energy affects the environment. I will not argue that cryptocurrencies do not use a lot of electricity. Yes, Bitcoin mining does take up a lot of energy, and in some places of the world cleaner than others. Actual mining for gold and aluminum involve digging and moving the earth as we move along the process of getting it from raw material to a finished product. Actual commerce takes place in office towers around the world where energy is used for computers, lighting, heating, cooling, and not to mention all the energy required to move employees to and from the office building each and every day. But often, when industry runs into a problem, it finds solutions to these problems, and this will likely be the case for cryptocurrency and digital assets as the technology evolves. Many arguments relating to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in relation to harming the environment come from only a few papers of the topic that have been written in the past. One is an October 2018 paper by Maher et al. Entitled "Bitcoin Emissions Alone Could Push Global Warming Above the Paris Agreement Target of 2 degrees Celsius." Another is also a 2018 paper published in Nature's Climate Change Journal entitled "Bitcoin Could Push Global Emissions Above 2 degrees Celsius, Scientists Say," and a third article recently written in the New York Times entitled "In Coinbase's Rise, a Reminder, Cryptocurrencies Use a Lot of Energy." I am not an expert here, so I am going to refer to others who have done deeper dives on this topic and have shared their findings. I will begin with the podcaster Nathaniel Whitmore, who goes by NLW from The Breakdown on the CoinDesk podcast network. On Sundays, he does what's called a long read Sunday. Recently, he read an article by Nic Carter on Bitcoin. The Gray Lady Embraces Climate Lysenkoism. I didn't know what Lysenkoism is, so a quick Google search tells me that it's the theories of the Soviet biologist and geneticist Trofim Lysenko, and you can do more research on that if you wish. Carter's article refutes the New York Times article in Coinbase's Rise, a reminder cryptocurrencies use lots of energy. I'm not going to go into too many details here, and I've left all the links to all the articles and videos I talk about in this video down below. But the main points of Carter's article is as follows. Carter claims that the New York Times article is so poorly researched that it contains, by his count, 10 specific claims that are erroneous, questionable, or rely on a complete misunderstanding of Bitcoin. The first erroneous claim is that the quote from the Camilo Mora article, "All this accounts for so little of the world's total transactions, yet has the carbon footprint of entire countries, so imagine it taking off, it'll ruin the planet," and reference to the Maher et al. Paper, "Bitcoin emissions alone could push global warming above the Paris Agreement target of 2 degrees Celsius." Carter says these two claims are the central piece of the article, claiming that Bitcoin usage could raise the global climate by 2 degrees Celsius. This claim relies on a single 2-page paper from October 2018 by Maher et al. claims that this paper is nonsense. There have been 3 comprehensive rebuttals to the article, and I encourage you to see the paper or listen to the podcast for further rebuttal to these claims. A third erroneous claim that Carter points to is this quote, "Cryptocurrency's heavy environmental toll is starting to roil climate policy in China with reference to the Jiang et al. Paper." Carter states that this is a complex black box model in an attempt to forecast the carbon dioxide emissions of Bitcoin mining. This model is impossible to audit, and key variables are impossible to forecast like price, fees, and energy mix of miners. No one knows the price of Bitcoin in 5 or 10 years. The rate of fees are unknown, as are the sources of energy miners will consume. So it is completely unscientific to assert a hard figure relating to energy consumption or CO2 impact. And yet, that is exactly what the authors of this paper assume. China has already banned Bitcoin mining in Inner Mongolia and could easily ban its uses in Zhangjiang, the other region that uses coal to generate electricity. That would solve China's Bitcoin mining problem. A fourth erroneous claim Carter states is that it implies that Bitcoin mining is responsible for blackouts in Iran. He argues that in fact the Iranian government scapegoated Bitcoin for their blackouts. If you read coverage on the topic from the Associated Press, they saw through the Iranian regime claims, and why would you believe these? And pointed out how hollow they were. A fifth claim in the New York Times article suggests that NFTs have outsized environmental impact. However, Carter claims the article makes erroneous calculations. A sixth statement in the New York Times article claims that each Bitcoin transaction accounts for 10,000 times more energy than a Visa transaction. Carter claims this talking point is so pervasive and so fundamentally off-base and relies on so many misunderstandings of Bitcoin that I've already written multiple articles addressing it. And he links in his article where you can find more information. But basically, Carter states that Visa is a payments network that relies on underlying financial infrastructures. Bitcoin is the financial infrastructure. Bitcoin offers fast, high-assurance final settlement. Transactors can trust that the value transfers are absolutely final within a short period of time. This permits Bitcoin to scale to enormous size. Billion-dollar transactions are common and settle without incident. Can you do that with Visa? And then Carter goes on with more support. The last 4 claims that the New York Times makes is that it claims that proof of work is a computing method that's intentionally designed to be inefficient. 8, it claims that Bitcoin is expected to eventually follow Ethereum's transition to proof of stake. 9, it repeats the claim that proof of stake reduces your emissions to almost nothing. And 10, it claims that Tezos and Near, 2 other cryptocurrencies, have vastly lowered their energy use by using proof of stake. For the rebuttals to these claims, I encourage you to read the article or listen to the podcast. Hopefully, I was able to just share with you some of the critiques regarding Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and how Nic Carter went in to refute an article that was recently written. Now, I'd like to move on to another deep diver who has taken a real look at the claims that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have an impact on the environment and has pointed out the errors in these claims. Guy from Coin Bureau, and I'll add his link down below, states that many who claim that crypto is harming the environment primarily come from a single source. An article published in 2018 in Nature's Climate Change Journal, Bitcoin pushed global emissions above 2 degrees Celsius, scientists say. Guy states in his YouTube video that the authors of this article claim it would take 30 to 60 years for Bitcoin mining emissions to change global temperatures. This timeline includes a series of seriously faulty assumptions about Bitcoin. It assumed the exponential adoption of Bitcoin that was happening at the peak of the 2017 bull run would continue indefinitely. It also assumed the Bitcoin network would be producing 1 billion transactions per day, which is impossible given that Bitcoin can only process a few 100,000 transactions per day. And the article assumed the energy required to process each of these individual transactions would be the same as producing an entire Bitcoin block. However, each Bitcoin block contains multiple transactions, not just one, and the maximum number of transactions that can fit into a Bitcoin block is around 3,000. These miscalculations, Guy states, are behind the statistics like 1 Bitcoin transaction uses more energy than 750,000 Visa swipes. Visa transactions require a massive infrastructure of banks, merchants, and middlemen that all use energy. Guy points out that this article claims total energy output of the planet will triple in the next few decades, while the hardware used to mine cryptocurrencies will not improve at all. The fact is that equipment has become more energy efficient because there is a massive incentive to invest in energy-saving technology. This was overlooked by the authors of the article, who didn't realize the amount of energy they assumed Bitcoin mining will require in the future would make it unprofitable to do so because miners would spend more energy than they earn from the bitcoins and fees they would receive from mining blocks. Guy also points out that Lars Dittmar, in a YouTube video called Bitcoin, Final Nail in the Coffin of Climate Change, can be viewed to hear other rebuttals to the negative impacts of Bitcoin mining. Guy continues to argue that cryptocurrency mining has become instrumental in accelerating the growth of green energy. This is because miners go where power is cheapest, because cheaper power means more profit. Renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, geothermal, and hydroelectric cost half as much as natural gas. Two issues with renewable energy, however, are availability and infrastructure. But with more usage comes more solutions, creating a positive feedback loop. I do encourage you to watch Guy's video, and the link is down below, but he poses the question, if I were to ask you which things have done most harm to the environment, what would you say? Overpopulation, e-waste, fossil fuels, pesticides, chemical runoffs, and land desertification are probably on your list. Maybe even toxic solar panel waste, which will actually be larger than plastic waste by 2050. Or the used wind turbine waste that can't be recycled and doesn't decompose. If I asked you what all these have in common, and these are Guy's words, you would probably say capitalism or lack thereof. Jeff Booth, in his book, The Price of Tomorrow, argues that the common denominator in the world's environmental woes is inflation. Sounds a little crazy, but inflation is where money loses its value because of an increase in supply. They have been losing 2 to 3% of their value each year. This is basically because governments have been creating money for decades, and printing has accelerated over the past year due to the pandemic. There are two things you can do with money: spend it or save it. But there is zero incentive to save money if it is losing its value each day. Instead, the incentive is to spend, since it is worth less today than tomorrow. The poor and middle class tend to spend their money on goods and services, while the rich tend to spend their money on investments that will be worth more in the future. Economically, inflation creates massive discrepancies in wealth that leads to societal instability, and hence even more money printing by the government. Environmentally, inflation leads to overconsumption, leading to a massive waste of resources and energy. In contrast, Bitcoin has a maximum supply and therefore technically is deflationary. It takes less Bitcoin to pay for the same goods and services as time goes on, because even while the amount of goods and services grows, the supply of Bitcoin does not. Again, you can do two things with Bitcoin: spend it or save it. But why would you spend something that will be worth more tomorrow than today? Deflation incentivizes saving and living frugally, which is the opposite of what inflation incentivizes. Recently, CEO Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway and his right-hand man Charlie Munger recently spoke to investors. While at this meeting, Charlie is quoted when referring to Bitcoin as disgusting and contrary to the interest of civilization. Now, these are two of the wealthiest men in America and have made billions of dollars investing in the stock market. They really have no need or desire to begin to understand all of the nuances of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and thus they look like old men yelling at clouds. I began this video with Gandhi's quote, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win." So like these two old men, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, and so many others, first they ignore you. Then people like Bill Maher, they laugh at you. Then those who criticize the environmental impacts and other problems with Bitcoin and digital assets, they fight you. And finally, you win. I'd like to share with you some of the latest headlines I found just searching the internet of all the ways that digital assets are winning. I'm going to try and do these quickly, so here we go. Trevor Lawrence is taking his entire signing bonus in cryptocurrencies. Here's why. Visa diving into cryptocurrency in a very, very big way. Goldman Sachs lists 19 crypto stocks that crushed S&P 500 thanks to Bitcoin surge. Blockchain technology and gaming, transforming the way we play online video games. Ethiopia links up with Cardano creator to launch the country's biggest blockchain development yet. eBay exploring cryptocurrency payments. Top auction house Sotheby's to accept cryptocurrencies via Coinbase for physical art. Bitcoin Depot deploys over 350 ATMs in the US. Global numbers exceed 19,000. Hundreds of banks in US to allow customers to buy, sell, hold Bitcoin through existing bank accounts. Southeast Asia's largest bank, DBS, says trading volumes in its cryptocurrency exchange have increased 10 times. Star Wars collectibles go digital as collections embrace NFTs. MasterCard finds 4 in 10 people plan to use cryptocurrency in the next year. JP Morgan boss Jamie Dimon says, I don't care about Bitcoin, but clients are interested. It's time, UFC to launch fan token for millions around the world. Visa and Tala join forces to boost cryptocurrency adoption for underbanked populations. Gold is clearly being replaced by digital gold. Precious metal market spike. Real estate listings accepting Bitcoin touch record highs. PayPal crypto shows really great results amid strongest quarter ever. So as I end out this video, my intentions were to share with you where some of the claims come from regarding cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin being harmful to the environment and some rebuttals to them. And I also tried to show you, through Gandhi's quote, that digital assets are on the road to winning. I thank you for watching this video. If you found any value in it, please give me a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in the next one.